All right, get ready, because today we're doing a deep dive into relationships.
Yeah.
And
Oh, this is going to be good.
yeah, and specifically,
Juicy.
yeah, juicy, we're talking about that secret ingredient that can totally make or break things. We're diving into congruence.
Mm-hmm.
And this is based on our source, the importance of congruence.
Okay.
And it sounds kind of like, psychobabble, but it's actually about, real world stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
How our actions line up with, what we think and feel.
Right.
So,
It's fascinating stuff because it really gets into like how we show up in our relationships.
yeah, and how to really kind of level up your relationship game
For sure.
if you can master this.
Yeah.
Which who knows if anyone can, but we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, well, and what's so interesting about congruence is that it's not just about saying the right things.
Yeah.
It really is about how those words
Yeah.
match up with
walking the walk.
Yeah, exactly. Walking the walk. It's about that alignment between like your inner world,
Yeah.
all those thoughts and feelings you have,
Yeah.
and how they actually manifest in your behavior.
Okay. Well, let's break this down, because I think,
Mm-hmm.
this source, the importance of congruence, talks about how, congruence or lack thereof can affect, trust, intimacy, how we handle disagreements.
Absolutely.
But first, like, what exactly is congruence? Can we just like define it so that we're all on the same page?
Yeah, so think of it this way. Like imagine someone saying, "Oh, I'm fine,"
Yeah.
but their tone is totally off.
Totally.
Right, like they're avoiding eye contact, their arms are crossed.
Right, yeah.
So their words are saying one thing, but their body language is like screaming something totally different.
Right.
That's incongruence in
Yeah.
a nutshell. It's when those inner feelings
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the outward expression
Yes.
don't match.
Okay, so it's like sending mixed signals,
Totally, yeah.
which I think we've all done that at some point in our lives. But
Oh, yeah, for sure.
yeah, the importance of congruence is really emphasizing how damaging that can be
Yeah, well,
in a relationship.
Yeah, especially when it's a consistent pattern. Because think about it, when someone's not showing up authentically,
Yeah.
trust starts to erode. It's like you're building a house on this shaky foundation.
Right.
Eventually, the whole thing's gonna, become unstable.
Okay, so how does this actually play out, let's say, in a real relationship?
Right.
Like, the importance of congruence
Yeah.
talks about even small disagreements can become major blowouts
Oh, yeah.
if there's a lack of this.
Absolutely, because imagine this. You and your partner are arguing about something totally minor.
Yeah.
Who forgot to take out the trash. But underneath that
Yeah.
is this like simmering resentment.
Yeah.
Because let's say one partner is always saying they'll help out more, but their actions don't match up. That's incongruence fueling the fire. And what starts as a disagreement about the trash
Yeah.
quickly becomes this huge fight because that foundation of trust
Right.
has been chipped away.
Right. So it's like
Mhm.
those little resentments build up because there's this disconnect between
Yeah.
the words and the actions.
Absolutely.
The importance of congruence
Yeah.
also talks about how this can really impact intimacy.
Oh, yeah.
So what's the connection there?
Well, I think we can all agree that deep intimacy requires vulnerability.
Totally.
Right. But how do you be vulnerable
Yeah.
with someone if you don't trust that their true self
Right.
matches up with
Yeah.
what they're presenting? So incongruence creates this distance where you might feel like you never really know the other person.
Yeah.
Because it's like there's always a part of them that's hidden or guarded.
Okay. So this is all starting to sound
Mm-hmm.
pretty bleak.
Right.
Like, is there any hope for us flawed humans
Yeah.
who are bound to have moments of incongruence?
Right. We're all human. We all mess up.
Right.
But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. The good news is that congruence is a skill.
Okay.
It's something we can actually develop and get better at over time.
Okay.
And that's where things start to get really interesting, I think.
Okay. All right. So I'm all ears.
Yeah.
Tell me how we can cultivate
Yeah.
more of this
Right.
congruence in our relationships.
So the importance of congruence really points to self-awareness as that first crucial step.
Okay.
It's about getting in touch with your own thoughts and feelings, really understanding what's going on beneath the surface.
So it's almost like, we've got to get to know ourselves better
Yeah.
before we can even
Exactly.
begin to be,
Yeah.
congruent in a relationship.
And practices like journaling or mindfulness can be really helpful here.
Yeah.
Imagine ending each day just reflecting on a situation
Yeah.
where maybe your actions didn't quite match up with your feelings, and just ask yourself, okay, what was going on for me internally? Why did I react that way?
Yeah.
That kind of introspection can be super illuminating.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really practical tip. It's like holding up a mirror to ourselves and being honest about what we see.
Absolutely.
Um, but then what? Like, so we've looked in the mirror, we've journaled,
Right.
we've been mindful.
Yeah.
How do we actually bridge that gap between the self-awareness
Yeah.
and then like actually acting with congruence?
That's where communication comes into play.
Yeah.
Open and honest communication.
Okay.
And I think it goes beyond just talking. It's about creating that safe space where both partners feel comfortable expressing those true feelings, even when it's tough. Like sometimes it's hard to be honest, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, maybe if there's been hurt in the past or if, conflict is something that people are afraid of, that, that adds another layer to it.
You're absolutely right. It takes courage and trust.
Right.
But, the importance of congruence suggests using I statements to express your feelings without, blaming or attacking your partner.
Yeah.
So, for example, instead of saying, you always make me feel unimportant, you could say, I felt hurt when I wasn't included in that decision.
Right.
It's a subtle shift, but it makes a big difference in how the message is received.
So what about those moments when we totally mess up?
Right.
Because let's be real.
Yeah.
We're all human.
We are.
There are going to be times when we, just completely slip into incongruent behavior.
Yeah.
What do we do then?
Well, you're spot on. Nobody's perfect. And if you expect perfection, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment.
Right.
But it's how we handle those moments, right?
Yeah.
When we fall short. One of the most powerful examples in the importance of congruence is actually this case study about a couple rebuilding trust after infidelity.
Wow. Okay, so this is getting
heavy stuff.
Yeah, into some heavy stuff.
Right.
But I'm assuming this wasn't just a quick, like, I'm sorry, let's move on situation.
No, not at all. The source really highlights how they use congruent communication to repair the damage.
Okay.
It was about acknowledging the pain they'd caused, expressing genuine remorse, and taking concrete steps to change their behavior.
Okay.
So it wasn't about sweeping things under the rug. It was about owning their mistakes.
Right.
Working towards that alignment.
So even in those really, difficult situations, congruence can be a powerful force.
Absolutely.
For healing and growth.
For sure. It's about taking responsibility for your actions, being willing to make amends, and also, creating that space where forgiveness can flourish.
So the importance of congruence dives into some of the psychological theories that underpin why this is all so important. Absolutely. Can you talk about some of those?
Yeah, one of the most relevant is Carl Rogers' person-centered theory.
Okay.
So Rogers believed that congruence is essential for self-actualization, which is basically the process of becoming the best and most honest version of ourselves.
Okay, so if we're trying to be someone we're not, then we're actually hindering our personal growth.
Exactly. And he argued that striving for authenticity, embracing congruence, is a fundamental human need. It's how we create genuine connections and build relationships that nourish us.
Okay.
But there's another really fascinating theory that kind of sheds light on the discomfort of incongruence, and that's Leon Festinger's cognitive dissonance theory.
Ooh, cognitive dissonance. I've heard that term thrown around, but I'm not sure I fully grasp it.
Well, it basically explains that icky feeling we get when our beliefs and actions are out of sync. Okay.
So think about a time when you said yes to something you didn't want to do. Maybe out of obligation or fear of letting someone down.
Yeah.
You probably felt that inner conflict.
Totally.
That dissonance.
Yeah.
Because your actions didn't align with your true desires.
Yeah, you feel like a phony.
Totally. It's like our brains are wired to seek that alignment.
Yeah.
That congruence.
Yeah.
And when it's missing, it creates a sense of discomfort. It motivates us to either change our behavior or adjust our beliefs to reduce the dissonance.
That's incredibly insightful. So it's not just, like this touchy-feely, relational thing. There's actual
it's rooted in
psychology at play here.
Yeah, for sure.
The importance of congruence also spends a good chunk of time exploring, the sociological implications of this as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, what does sociology have to say about
congruence and how it affects us, on a societal level?
Well, sociologists often use this thing called role theory
Okay.
to kind of understand this. And it suggests that we all play different roles in society, right?
Right.
Parent, child, friend, employee.
Yeah.
And each role comes with these expectations about how we're supposed to behave.
Right, like unwritten scripts.
Totally, yeah, unwritten scripts.
Yeah.
And congruence in this context means acting in a way that aligns with those societal expectations.
So, for instance, like a good parent is supposed to be nurturing and supportive.
Exactly.
And, a good employee is productive and reliable. Like we all kind of have these roles that we're supposed to fill.
Absolutely.
What happens when
those societal expectations clash with
with who we really are?
Our values, or our true selves.
It sounds like that's a recipe for major incongruence.
It can be. And this is where it gets really interesting from a sociological perspective. Because when individuals feel forced to conform to roles that don't resonate with them, it can lead to
like just being unhappy.
All sorts of social problems. Think about like gender roles, for example. Society has dictated, for a long time, very specific expectations for how men and women are supposed to behave.
Totally.
Right. Men are supposed to be strong and stoic. Women are supposed to be nurturing and emotional.
And we all know how limiting and frankly damaging those stereotypes can be.
They can force people into boxes that don't fit, right? Leading to those feelings of incongruence and, a sense of not belonging. And that can have, this ripple effect throughout society, contributing to inequality and discrimination.
I never thought about it that way. But it totally makes sense. So it's not just about being true to ourselves. It's about navigating these societal pressures. Finding ways to be authentic within.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance. For sure.
It is.
It is. And it's something that, sociologists are still trying to figure out. Like, how do we create a society that allows for individual expression while also maintaining some sense of social order?
I love this conversation. We've gone from, just defining congruence to, exploring the psychological, sociological implications of this.
Absolutely.
And it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
I think so, too. And the importance of congruence goes on to discuss several other fascinating sociological perspectives, including something called symbolic interactionism.
Ooh.
Which
I like the name of that already. Okay, so we gotta dive into that. But I think maybe our listeners need a moment to ice all of this so far. So
we'll take a quick pause here and we'll come back to explore those sociological perspectives in more depth.
Okay.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were starting to kind of untangle how congruence, or the lack of it, plays out on a much bigger scale.
Yeah, we were talking about all those societal expectations that can sometimes, box us in.
Totally.
Make it harder to be our true selves. The importance of congruence has a whole section on something called symbolic interactionism, which I am so curious to hear how that all ties in. So can we dive into that a little bit?
Absolutely. So symbolic interactionism basically focuses on how we create meaning through our interactions with each other and how those interactions shape how we understand ourselves in the world.
Okay, so it's not just about like what's going on inside of us, but how those inner experiences are like influenced by the ways we interact with others.
Exactly. Think about it. We're constantly sending and receiving messages, right? But verbally and non-verbally.
Yeah.
And those messages, those symbols, shape our sense of self and influence how we act in different situations. And congruence plays a role here. Because it's about making sure that those symbols, those messages we're sending out to the world are aligned with our true selves.
Okay, so say I'm projecting, confidence and success. But deep down, I'm feeling like totally insecure.
Right.
That creates a disconnect.
Yes. A classic example of incongruence.
Right. Okay.
And that kind of incongruence can lead to all sorts of problems.
Yeah.
Think about like someone who's constantly boasting about their accomplishments,
yeah,
but secretly feels like a total fraud.
Right.
That's a recipe for anxiety.
Yeah.
And even self-sabotage.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to convince themselves as much as
Yeah, totally.
everyone else that they're something they're not. The importance of congruence also suggests that this pressure to conform to certain social expectations can actually prevent us from reaching our full potential.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a paradox, isn't it?
It is.
Because we want to fit in, we want to be accepted.
Totally.
But sometimes those expectations can actually stifle our individuality.
This makes me think about social media, where everyone's presenting these like curated versions of themselves.
Yeah, highlight reels.
Totally, yeah. And it's so easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves.
Absolutely.
Feeling like we're not measuring up.
And that's where those feelings of incongruence can really get amplified.
Yeah.
If we're not careful. Because it's important to remember that what we see online is often just a
facade.
A facade, a snapshot, yeah.
Okay.
Not the whole story.
So how do we find that balance then between presenting ourselves, in a way that's socially acceptable, but also, staying true to our core values and beliefs?
I think that's where self-awareness comes in again, right?
Okay.
It's about being mindful of the messages we're
Yeah.
sending and making sure they're aligned with who we are at our core.
So it's not about like abandoning all social norms
Exactly. Yeah.
altogether,
Yeah.
but it's about finding those ways to express our individuality
Right.
within those norms.
I like that. It's like finding those points of intersection
Yeah.
where our authentic selves overlap
Right.
with our social roles.
But the importance of congruence also
Yeah.
talks about some of the potential, like downsides of symbolic interactionism.
Yeah, because one of the pitfalls
Yeah.
is that we can get so focused on managing our social image
Right.
that we actually lose touch with our authentic selves.
Oh, wow.
So it's like we're putting on a performance for the world,
Yeah.
and we kind of forget who we are off stage.
Oh, that's a little scary.
Right.
It's like we become the mask.
Yeah. And that disconnect can
Yeah.
create all sorts of problems, not just in our relationships, but in our own mental and emotional well-being.
So it sounds like congruence is really vital.
Yeah.
It's about, creating that sense of safety and predictability and trust.
Absolutely.
And the importance of congruence also talks about how this relates to conflict resolution.
Right.
So how does that all tie in?
Well, when there's that foundation of congruence, conflict becomes less threatening
Okay.
because you feel more confident that your partner is approaching the disagreement
Right.
with good intentions, even if you don't see eye to eye.
Okay. So instead of getting defensive or like, attacking each other,
Right.
you're more likely to actually listen
Exactly.
to each other's perspectives and try to find a solution that works for both of you.
It creates that space for open and honest dialogue.
Right.
Which is essential for resolving conflict constructively.
Okay, that makes sense. But it's important to note that congruence isn't about like being agreeable or just avoiding conflict altogether.
Right. Right.
So it's okay to disagree.
Totally.
As long as we're doing so in a way that's, congruent with our values and beliefs.
It's about expressing your needs and boundaries
Yeah.
in a way that's assertive but respectful.
Okay, so it's not about being a pushover or like suppressing our true feelings, but it's about finding that balance between authenticity and respect.
For sure.
This makes me think about all those times that I've like bitten my tongue or avoided difficult conversations just to kind of keep the peace.
And that might not have been the most congruent approach.
Yeah, probably not.
Because avoiding conflict can sometimes seem like the easier path.
Yeah.
But in the long run,
it
can actually create resentment and distance. Congruence is about addressing those issues directly and honestly, even if it feels uncomfortable in the moment.
Yeah, so having those tough conversations, but doing it in a way that's respectful.
Respectful and productive.
And productive.
For sure. And that's why the importance of congruence talks about creating a safe space for those conversations.
Right.
Because that sense of safety is what allows for that open and honest communication. It means setting aside judgment, listening without interrupting, validating each other's feelings.
Okay. Wow, so this is like...
It's a lot, right?
It's a lot. It's this like intricate dance between, our inner world and our outer actions.
For sure.
Between our individual needs
and our social roles.
You've captured it perfectly. It's a complex concept with, far-reaching implications.
It is.
But the importance of congruence doesn't just leave us with these abstract ideas.
Right.
It also offers some really practical tips for how to actually cultivate more congruence.
Okay, all right. So give me some takeaways.
Right. Actionable stuff.
Yes, that I can use.
Okay, well, one of the most practical tips is just to become more aware of our nonverbals.
Okay.
It's about paying attention to our body language.
Okay.
Our tone of voice, our facial expression.
So like doing a self-check.
Yeah, am I sending mixed messages?
Yeah.
Are my words matching my actions?
Okay, all right.
Another helpful tip is to practice being more present and mindful in our interactions.
Okay.
Because when we're fully present with our partner, we're less likely to just slip into autopilot.
Right, like react without even...
Yeah, or react in ways that are incongruent.
Thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
With our true feelings.
That makes sense. Because, if we're distracted or overwhelmed, it's easier to just,
fall back
into those old patterns.
Into old habits.
So mindfulness helps us to pause, connect with what's going on inside, and then respond in a way that's more aligned with our values.
Oh, exactly. So those are just a couple of tips, but...
This is great, but I have to admit, this whole conversation has also made me a little nervous.
Oh, yeah.
What if I realize, I'm really incongruent
right.
in some areas of my life. Like, where do I even begin to?
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
But remember, congruence is a journey,
okay,
not a destination.
Okay.
There's no need to strive for perfection or beat yourself up.
Right.
If you notice some areas where you're not quite aligned.
So it's more about progress than perfection, for sure. And the importance of congruence offers some great guidance for, how to get started on this journey.
Okay.
One tip is to start small.
Okay.
Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight.
Right.
Instead, pick one specific area where you'd like to be more congruent.
So if I'm like, oh, I realize I'm not being very honest with my friends about my feelings.
Yeah.
Maybe I could start by just being more authentic in one particular friendship.
That's a great example. Or maybe you realize you're always saying yes to commitments that you don't actually want to do.
Yeah.
You could start setting boundaries in one specific situation.
Okay, that's a good,
And just politely declining a request that doesn't align.
Those are good tips. That feels much less overwhelming.
Right. Breaking it down.
Yeah.
And remember to be patient with yourself.
Right.
Change takes time. There will be setbacks along the way.
Right. But the key is to keep practicing.
Yeah.
Keep striving for alignment.
Okay.
And celebrate those small victories. It's like you're training a muscle.
Yeah.
This congruence muscle.
Love
the more you use it,
the stronger it gets.
The stronger it gets.
But as with any muscle, it needs rest and recovery.
Absolutely. Be kind to yourself. Allow for imperfection.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask for support along the way.
Yeah, because those support systems can make a huge difference in our journey towards, greater congruence.
Absolutely, because they can provide encouragement, accountability, and a safe space to process those experiences.
Okay, so just to recap what we've learned from the importance of congruence, it's multifaceted.
It is.
Plays a really important role in our personal growth relationships.
Yeah.
Understanding society as a whole. It affects us on so many different levels.
And, while achieving perfect congruence might not be possible.
Yeah, a lifelong process.
It's a journey.
Yeah, exactly.
But the journey itself is incredibly valuable.
I think so too.
It's about striving for that authenticity, aligning our words and actions, creating a life that reflects, our values and beliefs.
Beautifully said. And remember, the importance of congruence, offers even more insights.
Right.
Practical strategies. So I encourage you to check it out.
Yeah, I'm going to have to.
If you're interested in diving deeper into this topic.
But before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question to ponder.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about congruence within relationships.
Right.
But what about individual congruence?
Oh, that's good.
How do your actions align with your personal values? Something to chew on.
I love that. That's an excellent question. And I think
Yeah.
that's the perfect place to wrap up
Great.
our deep dive into congruence. So until next time, keep diving deep and keep striving for alignment.
Love it. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
We've been talking all about congruence, and
yeah, it's a fascinating concept.
it is. We've been going over the psychology behind it, the sociology,
How it plays out in relationships.
how it plays out in relationships, how it plays out in society.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the biggest things for me is that congruence is a choice.
It is.
We're not just passive bystanders in this whole process.
We have agency.
Yeah, we can actively choose to, align our actions with our values and create more authentic and fulfilling.
Absolutely. It's empowering.
It is.
To know that we have that choice.
Yeah.
It means that we're not stuck with, whatever hand we've been dealt.
Right.
We can always choose to grow,
Yeah.
to change.
And to become better versions of ourselves.
More congruent versions of ourselves.
I love that.
Yeah.
But, this whole conversation has also made me a little nervous.
Oh, yeah.
What if I realize, I'm really incongruent
Yeah.
in certain areas of my life?
Yeah.
Where do I even start? How do I even begin to make changes?
That's a valid concern, for sure. But remember, congruence is a journey.
Right?
It's not about reaching some perfect destination.
Right, yeah.
It's about constantly striving for alignment.
Okay, so it's more about progress
Yeah.
than perfection.
Yeah. And the importance of congruence offers some great guidance for getting started on this journey. And one of the things it suggests is just starting small.
Okay.
You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Pick one specific area where you want to be more congruent.
So say I'm I'm not being very honest with my friends about how I feel.
Right.
Maybe I could start by just being more authentic in one specific friendship.
That's a great example. Or if you realize you're saying yes to commitments you don't really want to do,
Totally.
you could start setting boundaries.
Okay.
In one specific situation.
And just politely declining,
Right.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
That doesn't align
Absolutely.
with my values.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those are good tips. That feels much less overwhelming.
Right, because it's breaking it down into those smaller, manageable steps.
Okay.
And remember, be patient with yourself. Change takes time.
Right.
There will be setbacks.
Yeah.
But the key is to just keep practicing.
Okay.
Keep striving for alignment.
So it's we're developing
Yeah.
a new habit,
Totally.
learning a new skill.
It takes effort.
It does.
And consistency. And the importance of congruence actually talks about, creating a culture of congruence.
Oh, yeah.
What does that even look like?
Yeah. What does that look like, practically?
It's about creating an environment where congruence is valued, encouraged, both within ourselves and in our relationships.
Okay.
So it's about fostering that open communication where people feel safe to express their true thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment or rejection.
So it's not just about individual effort.
Right.
It's about creating this...
A supportive ecosystem.
Yeah, the supportive ecosystem.
Yeah, I like that.
Where congruence can thrive. The importance of congruence talks about, we have to model that behavior
Absolutely.
ourselves.
We do. If we want others to be more congruent,
Right.
we have to show up authentically ourselves.
Okay.
And that means being honest about our own struggles, admitting when we make mistakes, and taking responsibility for our actions. Walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
I love that. So we're all in this together.
We are.
Supporting each other on this journey toward greater congruence.
I love that.
But before we wrap up, I want to go back to that question that you posed about, individual congruence.
Right.
How do our actions align with our personal values? That's a big one. I'm still thinking about that.
Me too. And I think it's a question that deserves, ongoing reflection.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, congruence isn't just about how we interact with others.
Right.
It's also about how we live in alignment with our own values and aspirations.
Closing that gap.
Yeah, exactly. Between who we are.
Our inner world.
And who we're being in the world.
And what we're actually doing.
Exactly.
This has been such an enlightening conversation.
It has. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this concept. There's so much more to explore.
There is. But hopefully, this deep dive has given our listeners, a foundation.
Yeah, a starting point.
For understanding, what congruence is.
Why it matters.
Why it matters, how we can
To
cultivate
cultivate it.
more of it
Yeah,
in our lives.
absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up
Okay.
this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us
Yeah, thanks for being here.
on this exploration of congruence.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights.
Yes.
And practical tools.
Yeah.
To enhance your relationships.
And live a more authentic life.
Exactly. Until next time.
Keep diving deep.
Keep diving.